Hey, everybody, this is Tim James, and I have got a very, very special guest for you. This young man, Joseph Drolshagen, I have known for close to 5 years. He is a business development and consultant coach. Is that correct, Joe? Did I say that right?
Close enough. Yeah. It's
Close
good to
enough.
be here with you, Tim.
Close enough. I can't do tongue twisters. But so what I really want to focus on in this conversation that I'm gonna have with Joe is mindset and how it relates to sales, specifically telesales in the insurance space. So Joe, before we get into it, tell me how you became a coach and what that journey or process was like.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. It's good to be here with you. And I have a 28-year career in corporate America through sales up into vice president of sales. And I've built and led some really, really good sales teams, and I've led some really poor sales teams. And I've also built some, major territories myself in my career. So I built a lot of my knowledge and such there. But from the time I was 22 years old, like I grew up in a struggling family outside Detroit, Michigan. And as much as I recognized that at like 9 or 10 years old, and thought, man, I'm not going to live like you people live. When I got into my adulthood, I started noticing those same trends happening. And if something came really easy for me, I thought I didn't deserve it. And I struggled in sales for a long time. I struggled trying to hit that mark and such and over exceed with massive actions, exhaustive efforts, and all of that. And so I continued that from 22 years old, that learning process through. And then later on in my corporate career, I would end up helping organizations that were in bankruptcy to get back into profitability. And in doing so, I just got to a point of burnout, and it's like I don't want to do this anymore. And I had gained numerous certifications in the coaching and consulting that I do now through that process, and college education and all that. And really, it was just that so sick and tired of what I was doing that I got to a point of just stepping out into it, and I developed the IFGT coaching consulting, which the IFGT stands for It's Frickin' Go Time. And I stepped out. I had 3 clients I started working with, and I resigned from corporate America, moved down here to South Carolina, and I've been going forward ever since. It's just amazing seeing the results that people get in their life.
That's awesome. So Joe, you work with a wide variety of people in different industries and different niches, but primarily focused on sales reps and entrepreneurs, anything really in business. Okay, so I know because I'm in the entrepreneur space, and I know what it's like running a company, running multiple companies, and then getting stuck in just getting in your head, getting in like monotony, getting like kind of drifting away from your passion. What would you say is the most common pain point that you encounter with people that are signing up with you?
I say one of the first things, Tim, and you're great testament to this. When you and I met, you were working a job and you
Yep.
didn't really know what you wanted to do. And look at you now. Like I'm so proud of what you're doing with your life, and that you've stepped out and you've opened up that gateway and such, and you're doing what you're doing. Like it's awesome to know you and get to be a part of that. But one of the things that the biggest roadblock anybody could have is what I call a beginner mindset. I have helped business owners go from 7.5 to $23 million a year and above, and do so in less than 12 calendar months. I've helped wholesale companies go from $300,000 a year to over $3 million a year, and do that within a 12 month, 12 calendar months. And when I talk to people about that, they'll go, "That's no way is that possible," and they're absolutely right. For them, there's no way would that be possible. So that beginner mindset is where we start opening up our mind a little bit and start looking at, when I tell people that you can scale your business quickly and at the same time increase your amount of free time you have to enjoy your efforts, That's hard to believe. It's hard to buy into. And the reason for it is because our subconscious conditioning, is based on, all of our experiences, what we've been told, what we've seen, all of that, our patterns, paradigms, beliefs, all that's in that subconscious. And this just continues to click the brainwaves to the actions we take or don't take. So somebody who's been told it's hard, if you want to have a successful business, you got to be willing to trade stuff off, or you have to take massive actions or exhaustive efforts and things like that. That's going to be their truth. And so it's really about that beginner mindset is really start opening up. Could I believe in a different truth than I'm believing today? That's where it starts. Without that, you can't experience anything differently.
Yeah, that is sounds very, very true. So okay, so I'm trying to think about this from the mind of an average, some insurance sales representative, someone that's doing, that is purchasing leads every week, and they're dialing the hell out of the leads, and they're just stuck in the same spot. They're not making more money, they're not making less, but they're always just kind of paycheck to paycheck. I see that oftentimes.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to someone that is kind of stuck in monotony, and they feel like they can't grow? They feel like they're stuck in one spot. They don't know how to get to that next level. What would be kind of your idea or your advice there?
And there's a whole process that I take my clients through with that. The very first thing is when we get into that monotony and we get into that struggle, and it becomes part of our everyday fabric of our being, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's really what happens with it and stuff. And to get out of that, the first thing I'll do is I'll have my clients look at what is it you want to achieve. Forget about everything that's happening. And I have a process of doing that where we look out of ways, but what is that you want to achieve? What do you want your life to be like? How do you want sales to come to you? How do you want to, what do you want to build your business to? And get a very clear view of what that is. Because the importance of doing that, I call it a dynamic vision. The purpose of doing that, though, Tim, is once you have that, you're no longer living by the daily situations, circumstances, and conditions that pop up in our life. We have something that we can focus on. So it starts, dropping down how much attention those things get of what's happening right now, because that's just what it looks like as that vision is unfolding. And we keep our sights on that vision. When we do that, all of a sudden things start coming into alignment. We talk about this like out of the blue type of things, right? I refer to my higher power as blue, and I do that not because I love the color blue, but every time I'm talking to somebody and they talk about like achieving these great things, at some point there's always that out of the blue, that shows up, coincidences, whatever you want to call it, that brings things together that we could not do through our logical mind. Make sense?
Yes, 100%.
And as business people, we are so geared to living through our logical mind with building our strategy, coming up with our 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 6-month, year, 2, 5, 10-year goals and things like that. And that all lead to an exhaustive to-do list. When we get the total mindset into alignment, the conscious and subconscious, all of a sudden we start operating at a higher frequency, and we can actually design for coincidences to continually show up instead of half chance every once in a while. They start showing up on a regular basis. I do that exactly this in the 3 businesses that I operate right now, and it's amazing how clients easily show up, or how things just easily happen that feed into that vision of what I want to achieve. There's some other steps we need to take, but a lot of it is clearing away that subconscious conditioning in those beliefs, patterns, and paradigms to open up for a different opportunity, for different results, a level of results to happen in our life.
So what I'm hearing, Joe, is our biggest enemy is ourself.
It always is, always has been, always will be. What happens, though, is we're taught in the victimhood mode of life that we have that it's the economy, it's the competition, it's the interest rates, it's the this, it's the that. Let me ask you this, Tim, because you know a lot of insurance agents.
Yes.
Do you know insurance agents that have just screamed forward in a down economy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you know of any insurance agents that have struggled during a boom?
Yeah. Most of them do.
So when you think about that, then it can't be the economy, because if it was the economy, nobody would be able to launch forward in their business. If it was the economy, nobody would struggle during a boom.
That's true. Absolutely.
See,
In
what
fact,
happens
there's
is we
actually
get in.
more opportunity, Joe. Oftentimes when there's when like, let me give you a really good example right now,
Yeah.
just to relate it back to you. So like right now in the Medicare space, there's been CMS has put so many, there's all these new regulations, and agents are scared to death of, the CMS police taking away their license, this, that, and that. And as a result, what's happening is a lot of people are switching from Medicare to a completely different product. And so those agents that stick through that storm and just alter their process, actually there's a big opening up in that
They have a
market.
niche. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. It becomes a niche for them. Yes.
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 Yeah, 100%. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, that's okay. So what happens a lot of time, most of the time, is somebody gets into business, they get into it because they feel like they could be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who owns their own life, right? They have freedom, they have cash flow, they have abundance of finances flowing and clients and everything else. And that's how we all see it when we get into business. And then they get into business, and then you get a mentor that says, okay, now you have to do, these 16,000 things in order to be successful, right?
Yep.
And you start trying to follow those the best of your ability, and your business isn't really growing. So what do we typically do? What will somebody typically do when they face that?
Quit.
Try harder.
Or try harder. Yeah.
Put in more hours. Go deeper into the logical mind with strategizing. What happens? Successful people, it's not that they do certain things. Successful people do things a certain way. They get that mindset alignment to what they want to achieve before they ever step into it with action. And then they take complete different actions than people who just head first into it, figuring I'll do it hard enough until it works out. Because most of those people that do it hard enough until it works out end up going to do something else. They end up fatigued. They end up with health issues. They end up with medications and all kinds of things like that because of it.
Yeah. Well, to that point, Joe, I've done business with I've done business with people making hundreds of millions of dollars a month. No joke. And there is a commonality between those that are successful and those that are struggling. And from the outside looking in, you could say, okay, well, they have money, right? So they have opportunity to do things, but their mindset is completely different. I'm going to have a guest on, it'll actually be the next podcast, a man named Alex Branning. Alex Branning has one of the most successful CRM companies in the insurance space. He's a marketer.
Okay.
But when I talk to Alex Branning is he's not clinched up like this. He's not struggling. He knows what his role is. He knows how to delegate those tasks. And it's a completely different person versus the insurance agent that's just dialing. How am I going to eat? What if I get this charge
right
back?
there's the mentality difference right there. And when you talked about these people with the hundreds of millions of dollars a month or whatever it is and things like that, they had that mindset. You said it's a complete different mindset. They had that mindset before they got to that level. The mindset is what actually propelled them to that level.
I believe that.
What a lot of people do is what a lot of people do is once I get the money coming in and once I get the business level I want to have, then they never get there. We got to put the mindset of that millionaire on, of that millionaire entrepreneur. We got to put the mindset on in order to achieve that. Right. And what a lot of people want to do is wait until they achieve it. And so one of the things I do, instead of all the massive actions and the 16,000 to do things and all that and stuff, what I do is I help my clients develop what I call systems of accelerating habits. So there are things they like to do, there are things they're good at doing, and we do more of those things because it brings out more results. You know, a good example of this, what ultimately what we're doing is turning on our attraction factor. You know, we're getting into that serving mode, which is a whole thing for sales and stuff, but we into the serving mode rather than the selling mode. And when we're doing these things, you ever see somebody do a social media live and you can tell the person isn't comfortable and they don't like doing them?
Yes.
How long do you watch those for?
2 seconds.
At the most, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen somebody do a live now and you can tell that that camera puts that person home, like they're comfortable, they're you know, they're just on.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
how long do you watch those for?
Longer. I wouldn't say the whole time, but much longer.
No, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, it attracts you into it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get people that watch stuff like that of something that they're not even really interested in, but because of the speaker, the person doing it, and where that person is vibrating at, that attracts us to it. And that's one of the huge differences of somebody just going out and trying to run a business and somebody getting into alignment with that vision of what they want to experience through that business.
Yes.
And that's really what I specialize in helping clients to do. And it can be realtors, entrepreneurs, you know, people that own wholesale companies, insurance agents, MLM people. It doesn't matter who it is. It's just somebody that wants to achieve something in the business realm.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe, I want to talk about a really big issue with telesales, especially insurance, but I mean, it's across all industries. Call reluctance. Okay. So one of the things I see happening often is insurance agents, you know, they're making dials, they're trying to get a hold of people, and they just have a bad few days. They have a bad few days. No one's picking up the phone. No one is no one's receptive to what they want. And then they get stuck in this mindset where it's like
A 9,000-pound phone.
right, exactly. The phone gets huge, right? And then it's
Yeah.
the leads, or it's you know, the phone number, or it's the, you know, what, or it's the script, or it's this, that, and that. And so one of the things I've noticed with successful agents and agencies is consistency. They're able to pick up the phone and do, and almost like a robot, they're able to do the exact same thing every single time. Whether the person is happy, mad, angry, it doesn't affect them. They understand it's a game to them. So
What
how
it
would
is it, yeah, good, really good, really good question, Tim. And what it is it's not so much getting into a robot mode, because that's what a lot of our conditioning, that's what's a strategic mind, all that stuff is living like a robot. It's not about that. What it is getting into alignment before you pick that phone up the first time. And the next day you come in, regardless of your results yesterday, you get into alignment with it. And it becomes, you know, there's ways of doing it where it becomes a game, picking up the phone and everything else. But if you don't have if you don't have the mindset alignment part of it down, it's a chore. It's a
yeah,
struggle. It's something you got to force yourself to do in order to get your business, right?
yeah,
I mean, that's how a lot of people would describe that. You know, I can't, and the reason I call it 9,000-pound phone is I have people tell me, I'll tell you, in sales that I've done, it's all started. I mean, I've done $24 million deals and things like that, but it all started on the phone, you know, and it was cold calling and finding out who the decision and doing all that and everything and stuff, which is a little different than insurance because they're calling, they know the people they're calling. And so, but it's all about picking up that phone. And I'll tell you, one of the things that early on, I hated picking up the phone. I couldn't stand it. I would try and force myself. I'd get on the phone. I'm sure the other person could tell. And later on, as I started learning these tools, and I would get on the phone, and it didn't matter if somebody said yes or no to me. In fact, I used to play a game where once I learned how to get into alignment with the mindset and everything, I would play a game of, okay, I'm going to go for 10 no's today. And I would keep calling until I got, you know, and I'd get like 6, 7, 8 no's. And then I'd get somebody to say, yeah. And it was almost like, damn, like that took away from one of my 10. I was almost there, you know, and it becomes like, and when you get the mindset around things like that, we are so result oriented. We want every action we take to bring us results. but we don't want to do any of the alignment, or we don't know to do any of the alignment stuff in order to get that to happen.
Yeah.
So when I say that I help my clients to achieve greater results for their efforts, that's exactly what I'm talking to. And what I do is help them get into alignment with the vision, get into alignment with systems of accelerating habits that work for them. And then we go about it that way there. And then we start moving forward with it. And all of a sudden we're in this mode of we're doing what we enjoy doing. Nobody gets into the insurance money just for money. There was something in that sparked personally for us to get into it. So when we get into it and we start following that forward, all of a sudden it's not about what this next caller says that makes us our day good or bad. It's that we're getting to do what we love to do that's making our day good or bad. And when we get out of the way of having to get results is when we start just blow open those doorways to start receiving it.
Yeah. So I heard you mention you were talking about a servant's, how did you phrase that?
A servant's heart.
A servant's heart. So could you expand on that in relation to sales and what you meant by that term?
Yeah, I'll tell you, for me personally, is over the last 2 months, I have added 9 clients to the list of people I'm working with. Now, I only work with 12 to 14 clients at a time. So I had 9 clients and filled up my schedule, and not one of those people did I sell. What I did is I got on the phone, I found out where they were, and I really led into serving them through that call. And in doing so, they said, I want you to show me all of this. I want to learn how this whole thing, this whole process.
It's funny. It's funny how that works. I've noticed that. And I would say when I'm in alignment, when I'm in that groove, it's when I'm not focusing on dollar signs. It's when I'm genuinely focusing on doing the best job for my clients, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I do that all the time. But when I'm in that mode, that's when it seems to be, it's almost more powerful than marketing. It's like, it's when you step into that mode, it actually kind of alludes to what you were saying earlier. It's like doors open. It's something about doing what you're supposed to be doing it and doing it with the right intention, where it's like, it's almost like everything just kind of opens up for you. Is that kind of what you meant by that?
It's exactly what I meant, Tim. And you know what? We all have those days, right? All have the days when we're looking at money, we're looking at whatever it is. I will not reach out to people on those days when I have
Yeah.
those days.
Yeah.
Where I reach out to people is when I'm coming from my heart, and like, I love what I do, man. I love helping people. Watching, my parents were really good people, and they didn't have the tools available that we have now.
Right.
As far as how not to struggle and things like that, and work exhaustively and everything. So, like, anybody I can help doing that, man, that just like that's my gift of living. Really, is getting to do that. So coming from that place, the money always shows up in greater quantities than when I'm out selling.
Right.
So living in that place, and it's funny because like earlier in my life, I always thought, well, yeah, I want to help other people, but I want to take care of me first. I want to take care of me, and I want mine, and I went that way, and man, I always struggled. And in this mode here, I find when I'm serving somebody, when I can help somebody like turn that light on in their creativity and help them step into developing those systems of accelerating habits, or open the doorway to their unique style and things like that, man, that just overflows me with gratitude and feeling blessed that I got to be like that in somebody else's life. And in doing so, there's more money than I've ever earned, than
Yeah.
I've ever had in corporate America or anything else that comes to me as a result.
Interesting. That's interesting, man. So what would you what would you say to the insurance agent that is not doesn't have a lot of money, kind of new to the industry, right? And is doesn't know if they should stay with it, hasn't seen success, is feeling very doubtful, is feeling very like, can I do this? Is this the right path for me? Right. Second guessing themselves. I see that all the time. I mean, there's in the insurance space, just like in real estate, there's a huge churn rate, right? What would be your advice to that person? I mean, yeah, what would be your advice?
So here's where I differ. I want to say from a majority of coaching or consulting or type programs out there and stuff, is most places will give you a roadmap and tell you what you have to do to be successful,
Right.
right? And how much of it you need to do and everything else. I don't do that because, Tim, what works for you to be successful is not going to be the same thing that works for me. So
True.
I don't have roadmaps. I don't have lists of things that we do and everything else. What I do is I help that person develop those systems within themselves for their pathway and start opening that up. So what I would say to anybody, like you said, that's newer or things like that, is you can follow, there's pathways out there that'll tell you all the actions that you can take to supposedly be successful. But one of the things I found, most of the coaches that are teaching those programs, less than 1% of the clients they have ever achieve the same level of results that they've achieved.
Right.
So really it's about getting your game plan, getting your, understanding your conditioning, the blocks and the patterns, behaviors and all that, and then shifting those. The problem is most of us, they're so common that we live through them. It'd be uncomfortable to take another action. So we keep taking the same actions, which only we take common actions that produce common results.
Mhm.
So one of the things we have to learn to do to break out of that mold is we have to take uncommon actions, which can be uncomfortable at first, but it's really the only way to get uncommon results. So it's doing things that are not comfortable. Now, for me to say right here, these are what the things are, I don't know. They wouldn't be the same for you as they are for me. But identifying what those are, identifying the subconscious conditioning, the beliefs, all of the stuff that's built into that subconscious, and then shifting that. And the reason that's so vitally important is we have a conscious mind, right?
Mhm.
It's the words we use, the thoughts we entertain, the people we hang out with, books we read, all of this, and all that's in the conscious mind. We have control over that. Also in our conscious mind is our knowing. We know what we want in our conscious mind. And then we have the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind holds all of our, I've already shared, holds all of our beliefs, patterns, paradigms, everything. We don't even have to experience it for it to be our conditioning. Somebody could have told us it, whatever it is. And then that becomes part of our programming, and we live and die by that programming. Within that subconscious is, I call it a motherboard that holds all that. Within that, that's what triggers our brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So somebody that's coming from a thing of struggle or things like that, they're not going to take easy actions that could produce great results for them. They're not going to be in touch so much with intuitive actions and stuff like that, because they're going to go to the logical mind, because that makes sense, because that's what the programming says. And what happens ultimately in our conscious is the doing side of what we want. So we have our knowing here and our doing over here, and there's a gap between that knowing and doing. We have to close that gap to get that total mindset alignment. So we know what we want, and we're taking the actions that lead to what we want. And that's how you tap into producing greater results with less effort.
Interesting. So Joe, I want to talk about one more topic. And I kind of want to, because I don't think I've told our story about my transition from healthcare to where I'm at now. And if you had said like 10 years ago, like, hey, Tim, you're going to end up being a marketer in the insurance space, like I would have thought you were crazy, because it was just not on my radar.
High level hat.
Yeah, I'm wearing a high level hat. That's right. But it was not in my plan. I mean, I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. I always wanted to do something there. But throughout my whole life, I kept making compromises, right? So like when I got into healthcare, that was a decision based entirely out of fear. It was like, hey, I need a stable job, a stable a stable income, stable insurance and stuff like that. And I did that for about 5 years and I hated it. And that's right around when you and I met, Joe. And I'll never forget, you were the one that helped me transition out of that to what I wanted to doing something new. And that was, at that time, that was a really, really scary decision for me, right? Because like I just had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear and anxiety. And I was like, I had a new kid on the way. Just a lot of uncertainty. I was like, I don't know if this is the right time for me to be making a big leap like this. But I just remember being on the phone with you and talking with you and meeting with you. And you were just so confident, like, hey man, if you do what you love and you step into it and you do it with passion, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. And like today I have a life that I couldn't even dream of. You know what I mean? I couldn't dream up the life that I have today. And so I want to thank you for that, number one. But what I want to talk about is that fear, right? What I would imagine is a lot of the reprogramming of the subconscious mind and stuff like that is centered in some type of fear of losing something. Would you agree with that? And how do you help your clients identify what their subconscious fears are and how to overcome those?
Yeah. The first thing I gotta say, kind of going through, you said a lot there, right?
Yeah.
But the first thing is seeing you do that. Like, Tim, you are the hero of your journey. Like, and that could not have been possible had you not have been willing to believe that there's something better out there than what you were experiencing in healthcare.
Yes.
You were trying to go where you were having them book your time. Remember that when you set up the calendar and they were booking your time and trying to create an entrepreneur experience out of that and stay in that safety zone of that. But fear is always a part of it. Fear, changing our patterns, our paradigms, our beliefs is fearful. Any of that stuff is fearful because we're so accustomed to it. Excuse me. And you said something a couple minutes ago that I wanted to hit on, because you said that you were taking, what you really want, and this is good enough type of thing, and that's what so many people do because of fear, is they know what they want. Somebody who's in the insurance business, what you want your business to look like, but then you bump against that fear and you go, well, maybe this is okay. And we live these mediocre lives in our business when we could really be thriving and understanding. All the fear is saying is you haven't done so yet. It's new. It's not telling you can't. It's not been proven you can't do it. It's just telling you haven't done so yet. And one of the things that I hang glide. And I run off of 2,000-foot mountaintops with me and a hang glider, And the first time I did that, man, I stood up there and I went through all the training and everything. I stood there, I got the hang glider, and they go, okay, you're clear. And I stood there and I had four steps to the edge of this thing. And it just like you run off of it is what you do. You keep running until your feet are in the air. And I stood there and my heart started beating fast, and I could like hear my insides going, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, And then you're supposed to walk, jog, and run, but you only have like 4 steps to do it. So it's a pretty quick takeoff, And I take that first step and I start moving, and I could feel my heart. And the last step I took, I could feel like my heart was in my throat and it's just beating, And that's the same thing when we step outside of what we know. The same thing can happen. But Tim, the moment my feet left the ground, it was like ecstasy. It was just so amazing. And that's what happens. The bigger the fear is, the closer to that level of greatness we're getting. But we cannot get there in our comfort zone. We have to leave our comfort zone in order to achieve that. And somebody that really wants to build their business, and they got the beginner mindset, and they can see themselves doing it, and they put that on, and then they get the systems of Excel, and all of a sudden, and you shift the subconscious conditioning, and all of a sudden, as you're doing this process, it alleviates enough of the fear to allow us to stop. And ultimately, what we find is our fear is paper thin. There's no real substance to it other than it's just unknown. And that's built throughout the entire SMT method, is managing fear, because we can't get away from it. We can't get around it, over it, under it. But like I said, when we go through it, most of the time it's paper thin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just new.
Interesting. So it's yeah, I mean, you can't, fears are going to crop up. They're going to crop up. New things are going to happen. And so through your method, you help entrepreneurs identify those fears and go through that and reprogram through that. Essentially,
Go
is that what
through
I'm
the
hearing?
fear. We don't reprogram the fear. We go through it. And in doing it, when I'm working with somebody, and the whole thing is geared towards, you're not standing here and jumping. I mean, like with the hang gliding scenario, you're not going right from here. What we do is we start coming up against it. And as we do, and you start achieving the successes right from the start of the whole thing, then all of a sudden it's like, man, I want to go further. I want to go, we get that drive going when we start hitting wins. And as we do that, we'll go through some of the fear and not even realize there was fear there until afterwards.
Yeah.
So it really is managing that process through the fear. We don't have to go up against that, 1,000-pound bear. You know what I'm saying? Like just face to face like that. With the fear is we can start going through it. And the SMT method is designed to help people. You know how many people never achieve the business success they want to achieve? And it's not that it's not possible for them. It's that they're afraid to open up that belief to the possibility of it. One of my favorite quotes in the world, and I never say it the right way, but it's by Marianne Williamson. And she says, our greatest fear is not that we're powerless. Our real fear, our greatest fear that we have, is how powerful we really are. And you think about that, if you have a business, if you're in business right now and you're not achieving what you want to achieve, and you have any belief at all it's not possible, or it's supposed to be a struggle or anything else, you are not tapped into how powerful you are.
That's very interesting. I've never thought about it like that. That's an interesting thing. So Joe, I want to plug you for a minute. And I want to talk about, so one of the things is in the insurance space, from what I've noticed, I don't see a lot of coaches. And I think there is a huge gap here. There's a huge space that needs to be filled, because what I see mentorships, right? I see, people's uplines, and, there might be some coaching element to it, but really what it is it's primarily sales or, training, like in relation to the industry. And so I think that, because I see this on a day-to-day basis, this is why I had you on my channel, is because I see a huge demand for what you do. Now, I know you have limited spots, you only take on X amount of clients per month, but if there's an agent or an agency owner or an IMO owner, whatever it is that's watching this, that has made it up this far into our video, how would they get in touch with you, and what would that process look like?
Yeah, the easiest thing they could do is go to coachwithjoey.com. It's a
Okay.
website. You can set up a 15-minute conversation. We can jump on the phone. We can talk about it. Hell, if you want, my personal number is 864-614-3333. If it's easier doing that, and just get a hold of me. And even in 15 minutes, I can help you start opening up avenues, and talk about what that is, and help you maybe with some of the mindset things that are blocking you and stuff. From there, if we decide we want to talk more about it, then we'll set up a whole nother conversation, and we'll talk about what I do, how I do it, where you're coming from, all the details and stuff, and see if that's for you. But anybody that wants to have a conversation, my whole passion and purpose of my life, Tim, is to inspire, motivate, and lead millions of people to living better lives. And so I'm very open to those conversations and having them. So yeah, that would be a starting point. And then from there, we would talk about which avenue. We have multiple avenues that I have set up in the SMT method, so that I can meet people with where they're at.
Well, I'm a huge fan of yours, Joe. I mean, you're my friend, but I'm a huge fan of yours. Every time I get on the phone with you, I feel, I mean, you help me a lot, a lot. Probably more than you know. And so, anyone that is struggling or is trying to hit that next level, I highly recommend Joe. Reach out to him, give him a call. And Joe, thank you so much for being on this. I really appreciate it, my friend.
It was a great conversation. I love talking with Tim. I love you. You're a brother of mine. So,
All right, buddy. I'll see you on the other side.
all right.